Hello and welcome to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out 53, My How the Time Flies. We're going to be doing a spoiler-filled deep dive discussion over Dungeon Lord, Abominable Creatures, The Wraith's Haunt, Lit RPG Series Book 3. And yeah, what a journey. Attempting to utilize a green screen. I got one first try, so please, be kind. I need to work on my lighting and distance and shadows, and yeah, just kind of threw it up. So, kind of excited about that. More tutorials to come. So, this book is primarily where the Inquisitors finally drop the hammer, and we have the big battle at the end over Undercity.
Yeah, the world gets that much bigger, right? Yeah, I agree. It does look good, the green screen.
Or I was gonna say, is that why you did the narrow view?
Oh, yeah, I just playing with the StreamYard settings and all the difference. It's so much cleaner when we use the snap cam. I know sometimes like the chair and the background would kind of get together where it wouldn't be as crisp. Or with the
Or
green
for
screen.
my problem is I'm still getting like a lot of the green reflection. Plus, I have green on this, so it like phases through. You can see like a little tree
Oh,
behind me,
that is
and
actually
then
pretty
I had
cool.
to flip my pillow because I
Uh,
have a green pillow,
you could have some fun with that though. It'd be like full immersion.
and then yeah, green little border guys.
That's
That's
pretty
part of my
cool.
problem with green screen is like I also dang it, table doesn't reach. I have a green
Uh,
mouse and then a green chair and then my LEDs for my PC is green and
I think we
then
need to get you a
my
green
mouse is
shirt.
green. But
Everybody just send Peter green gear for his birthday coming up in a couple days. Yeah.
but I hear blue screen is a thing and I can always flip this one. It's
What?
got one on either side. But yeah,
What's
I
the
don't know.
difference
First
between
try.
blue and green screen?
The software solution to a hardware problem. So
Mm,
the difference is, yeah, it's all just software because you can literally do any color, but green, because it's like based off of where it's at on the color wheel. Because, like blue is pretty close to purple because they're similar, but then green is pretty far from normal natural tones. So it's easier to cut it.
blue is more for night scenes.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, that I guess true because you want to light your subject to fit into your scene you're putting them in. So it's a lot easier to do a lighter color for a blue than if you're, anyway, lighting stuff. So or no, that's the last one, not otherworldly haunt. I just read it. Abominable creatures. Yes.
Our haunt has grown a lot. When you went back and reread it, and so correct me if my memory is not 100%, but for book one, we get what, 2 days total time frame? 2, 3 days is all of
I
book
think it's
one.
like 2-3 days. Primarily dropped into the new world, get our feet under us just to go up against, the big bad of the mind broods. We get a free pass based off of a technicality for Inquisitor Ione doing his duty, which is to protect the people. So he ends up sending them, and then they, hide that there was a mind brood involved because the Inquisitors burn everything to the ground first and bury it later approach.
They have a literal scorcher's policy because of the mind brood.
Yeah, because of
All
Sephar's Bane
mm-hmm.
or Sephar
Is it Galliode? What's
or
the
Gallia, the
Gallio?
Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, it's where we get our main crew. He saves the two in the beginning when they come out, and the Batlin, and pick up Kess of Green. And then by book 3, we open up with a war between the 6 different spiders, right? The Empress already has 3 going up against the other 3.
Yeah,
Does that
yeah.
sound right?
Or Ed, our main guy, is trying to break things and essentially wants to create a spider empire where all the queens are subservient through the dungeon act to his main queen. The
Yes.
very first little scene we get is him pretty much scolding his companions, like, "Wait, you don't know which spiders are ours?" And yeah, he goes and we get a little bit into the minor differences in their builds and their patterns and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spiders. I think it's become a trope at this point, right? Was that what we were talking about earlier in the week?
Or yeah, just
Almost
about
every,
every lit RPG we listen to has giant spiders.
I would even go as far as say fantasy theme even. You look at any major fantasy theme, there's giant spiders.
Yeah.
Was it like Lord of the Rings? Um, gosh, trying to think through a couple. I just had a few more. But yeah, giant spiders. So he goes from a couple Batlins to a spider empire where he manipulates objectivity through his programming. Um, I think we can relate to it as we were just talking about with Pete trying to break things, challenge the rules. Like, oh, how do I do this? Well, we'll set up these tiers in the Spider Kingdom to where we don't have to deal with the politics because of the hierarchy and all the people who packed with him. It's like the haunt terms of service, right? Like posted up on the
Yeah.
wall.
Oh,
He
it's
sets
called meta magic or whatnot. Like, how does someone not just learn your spell or whatever, take it to a
mm-hmm,
meta mage?
right.
And
Learn
he's
the
like, "Oh
source code,
yes, one that I understand more than anybody else."
logic. And one of the things I really enjoy about this story is uh, the layers of it. We go from he plays it as a game and it's like cliche tropey names like the good versus the dark or the good versus the bad, the light kingdom versus the dark kingdom. And as he's going and setting up these terms of services with the minions and even just like the townspeople, right? Like he completely exposes how poor the conditions they had it under the Light Kingdom or the good guys with the Inquisitors. They're like, what? I get to own my own land? What? You only take 10%? Like they were pretty much taking at least 50%, barely making it season to season. And when whoever is taking care of the farm dies, the kids are lucky if they get to keep it. If they don't just like give it to somebody else, they're like, sure, yeah, I'll go underground. Poisonous gas? Okay. Like
Oh man, they had a couple good one-liners there, like my cousin was eaten by a werewolf, or have you ever tried to get sheep back after they escape during a storm?
Life is good at the haunt now. They're no
Yep.
longer doing some barely getting by to survive. We're now training our chickens that we got for um, to solve our food needs. We're now
Oh, the
trying to
hell
train.
chickens.
Yeah, we're now trying to train our hell chickens to be our epic mounts as we have our heroes, or not our heroes, our dungeon lord and his crew um, riding on in. I guess Kleck is already a spider. They have the spider mounts.
Yeah, they've got the spider riders.
Hmm.
We pick up a vampire,
Yes,
which yeah.
yes.
Well, and as much as like we're being successful throughout this book, it's one of those like you get your feet under you and then life kicks it right back out because no, we're not, about to be taken out by a battling cloud. No, we're not currently fighting this undead or well, this guy who has a mind brood in his arm
Hmm.
and who can, regenerate. But now we're dealing with the Inquisitors, and then we also have the whole oh what they call it, the people in the underworld or netherworld. It's like a
I think it's
sponsor.
so. Oh, okay. I thought for a moment you're talking about Undercity, but you're not talking about Undercity. You're talking about like the other planes, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah. We get the vampire. She creates a portal. Haran is trying to get him to go and to get
I did
a
not take good notes,
sponsor.
but yeah, like is it Colgoron, something like that? Does that sound right? The
Similar.
lady, yeah, pretty much the
The
vampires working for one of the big OGs in the underworld, the Dark God. Because this is a book where he has the vision, right, of the possibilities. Because
Yeah,
Murmur,
there's a lot of like vision-esque tropey stuff going on. Like I think actually the very first scene is someone we don't know telling people at the Thieves Guild
yes,
saying stuff's
yes,
about to go down, and then like that's our final scene of the book, so that one's fulfilled. And then we run into as he upgrades his spell talent, he ends up meeting the mistress of secrets or whatever, and gets to see the ancient artifact or the tarot cards for
that's
possible
right.
futures. And
There's a
yeah,
lot in that. I forgot all about that. I think we were talking about out of all the books, this is one we've listened to
please.
the least. That being said, how many times do you think you've listened to it at this point?
It's probably 10, 12, but
Audiobooks are amazing. Uh, but there's a lot there, and especially when it plays up against, is it Murmur's Gambit or
yeah,
the,
that's one thing I really have to respect about this series. Like, as soon as he starts to get transported into the other world, they have it's Faustian's Gambit, and
yes,
that's literally the whole basis of the series. We're gonna bring you up as a dungeon lord. Nobody's gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, and they have
yep,
a good quote in this one about Ed's talking to Levy, and he's like, "Oh, do you remember my bet with Haran about the Faustian Gambit?" And she's pretty much blows it off like, "Oh, if Alder puts on my clothes, he's not going to be Lavina of the Haunt. He's going to be Alder. We are who we are." And that's where Edward has an internal monologue of the mantle is our power. It's not, it's our legacy. It's yeah.
and
I
and
wish I had the
all
quote.
and all the responsibility that comes with it too.
Yeah.
Um, but he overcompensates in a way. Like, as he's
I
setting up the rules of the haunt and the way the haunt's going to work, as he thinks about it, he's like, no, regardless of what they say, we're building a great community here, right? Like, yes, we have all these different species working together, yet the conditions are so much better than their previous lives. Um, like the townspeople really rally for him. The blacksmith that stepped up, the herbalist that steps up, Cass, like you have all these other townspeople, the guardsmen. We get to see Cass train like 9
or
guardsmen.
Kess.
Kess trained 9 guardsmen. And I think, and I'd be curious to hear your feelings on it, that the stat updates are pretty good and it works in very well with the story. Like where
I
you have this moment where it's like, oh, look how far we've come, or when she takes the guardsmen over to look at
oh
Edward
yeah,
and
it's beautifully melded and it
hmm
serves a purpose.
hmm It's not just, hey, remember these things? Yeah, here's the stats. Um, but when you get the haunt update, like you went through all 3 books this last week, right? And
Hmm.
started from the bottom. Now he's here as far as first book, and then by the end of third book, right? Because by the
He's
end of the third book,
got, a underground railway empire. He's put a dungeon in the catacombs, which was book two's big Wraith thing, and now he pretty much owns Undercity. He's found out. Oh man, like the ending was beautiful.
yes,
He essentially keeps his name, you know, Dungeon Lord Edward Wright, and his old crew ends up running into him in game through a giant world event,
oh,
and
the
both of
feels,
his, friends versus his boss end up utilizing kind of like no target abilities. That way they can, mess with his guard and do other
hmm
stuff.
right?
And then yeah, just like the whole battle fight scene stuff.
Yes, 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 yes.
Uh,
It was so beautifully done. Like one of those moments where you just want to cheer for it. The old crew back together, especially with the chapters leading up to that, with the female character in the real world. I forget her name. She plays the healer. Um, but Haran was trying to recruit her as she was going through the same nasty, toxic work
Man,
environment. Um,
I was sad she didn't take him up on the offer.
Imagine if she did.
But
The
book
2 of
four is
them.
just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And we're leading up to that. All the politics in the underworld, like big people who have giant centipedes at their disposal are saying, "Hey, you know, mama likes what you're doing. Here's my credit cards. Go and" what's her name? Levy?
Yeah, the witch.
That chapter where she goes
Oh
through
man,
the
that was another.
justification.
That was another like good for you sound booth theater because I know you
Yes,
did some of the sounders for it. Where
yes.
I like the spider voices. I think the first book does it best, and it's like only with the queens. The second book and third book didn't really like drive it home for me, but they were dealing with multiple ones. It was still there, but her montage of yeah, why she's doing all the things she's doing, and yeah, it was they we got a musical score with it, so reason why audiobook is amazing.
They do a pretty good job for voices inside our head, and sound booth is just perfect for this book because of the variety of voices and the sounders, and the haunt just has so many different people, right?
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. Really enjoy the audiobooks.
So,
Yeah.
and we know because we got to see the Hell Chickens, what, book 2? 1?
And the pheromones.
Or well, I was going to the underworld or whatever it actually is called. Can't think of it. And how they extend the pact or whatnot. Like, hey, if you join us, we'll give you stuff at your disposal. And then how St. Clair and Tillman's dungeon slash factory comes around, and I thought that initially first pass through, I thought that was going to be a bigger part of this book, but it is a year out, so
We're
that's
getting some foreshadowing for book 4, and that's why I'm over here like really biting my lip because I remember book 4, and I'm now tempted to look up timeline for book 5. This series does an amazing job scaling. And if you looked at like the total time frame, because they're still decent sized books, especially for the lit RPG genre. But when you get to it, just the scaling from book 1, those first 2 days, where we have like a pair of pants and a walking stick.
yeah, it's
Where
dangerous to go alone. Take this.
yes, yes. Um, and now he has Undercity working for him. We start out going on the offensive to pick up the vampire, right? Like
Yeah,
that was a big old like WTF moment where it's like, hey, we're taking the fight to them. We're going to run this like covert op, multi-layer plan, wabam, and then the fight at the end is just a huge epic city battle and just the way it takes place over there. And now it's like, oh hey, now we're going to take on like the king and his army as I put everything together with my underground railroad system. And yeah, yeah. And the competition with the gods. The
yeah, and
deities
that's
are doing
where
their own thing.
this book yet again does well, because like the whole reason Ivalice Online was a thing was so that the light gods can get a reprieve to rebuild their stuff, and then the whole reason other stuff is happening and whatnot is so that the dark gods can figure their things out. And here, you know, Edward is just trying to do his own thing.
Yeah.
But I guess why this book I probably hadn't been through it as much is like he doesn't get the girl. Book 1 he gets a shindig, and then book 2 he gets his bow chicka bow bow, and then book 3 we get that ironic commentary from book 2 where they're like, oh yeah, she's great, you know keep going, Ed, this will make a great addition to my chronicles for the haunt. Next you'll marry a dungeon lady or a dungeon lady vampire, and then we get one, but it would have been too
Right.
cliche, so we couldn't
Right.
do it.
But it still crosses your mind. Was that foreshadowing? Will they go there? Um, yeah. And then Levy's obsession with the vampire to turn out it's like a little girl, and they end up just sniping at each other back and
Yeah.
forth. It feels like the dysfunctional family in a way. You get some of the
Oh
slice
man,
of
there's a
life,
quote. Can't remember it.
yeah, where they're
Or
all
something
just
about like if there is perfect harmony, you're not living in the real world. Or
hmm
it was like a comment about home. All the Batlins were trying to go to a certain spot, and none of them wanted to yield. And it was like the cooks and the brewer ones, and then there was a massive like food fight. Whatever.
yes, yes. And Edward, he's the first one like him from Earth, right? That was the
Yeah.
big deal. Um, bringing in the new blood to shake things up, change the game from the gods' perspectives, or so they like to say. And he does it differently in a way, right? Sets up the packs to be for the people, focuses on building the haunt, and even Kess calls it out where time and time again, he's different. Is this the type of guy who's going to be sitting in the back letting the guards, the minions, be cannon fodder? No, he's on the front lines where everyone doesn't want him to be on the front lines because they're realizing how good they have it. Like the queens, the spiders are highly motivated to make sure he doesn't die because it only works with his pact magic, right? To
Yeah,
keep the
yeah, they
other.
each have their own incentive. Like the Batlins just want some place where they're not fearing for themselves from wolves. The
And they're
spiders want to be part of
prospering.
this giant
They're
empire.
mhm.
The townspeople, he's given them more than anybody else would give them.
He had
The
from neighboring
fantasy
towns showing
world
up.
of, the 1% that owns everything. Fantasy world. Um, yeah.
Yeah. See, your green screen's so crisp, and then here's my non-green screen with the snap filter.
Yeah.
And then yours
I
is just
I didn't set up my snap filter for this or snap cam. I just bypassed it and went directly to it. Because
mhm.
sometimes those filters change like your contrast and your hues and all that. So
Very true. Very true. It's a fun series.
oh yeah, book 3 was good. Massive power leap. Yeah, yeah. The fact that we figured out how to essentially beat the heroes with our scrambler towers, the fact that we
Mhm.
now have a hero that we can dissect and figure out what's going on. Yeah, it's a big
All
deal.
at the end, everyone was spying on their fight, right? Like all the dungeon lords, anybody who had a scryer or whatnot, like the
Oh
ability
yeah,
to
the
look.
divination,
Mm-hmm. Because
and
it
then he
was
scrambled it all.
he takes them on the Inquisition,
Yep.
um, and then
Over his
Galileo,
army of spiders and hell chickens.
Galileo and his inner struggle, and to find out that the revelation with the Judicar or whatnot, the justice, the people, um, whatever the council tier is. I
I was
wish I
thinking of
took better
Sen
notes for
for
this fight.
Justicar, but
You're
that's not
right.
it.
You're right. We did also listen to Glory to the Brave this week, and we can talk about that later. Um,
Anyway, so the inner turmoil and politics from the brand new Inquisitor to be like, we do what's right.
mhm.
Yeah, justice. Take that, evildoers. And then Galileo being like the black sheep or the, oh, yeah. Anyway, so he's the only one who has been bestowed the power from their god to do the sun wave,
Yes.
which makes you wonder about the heroes because is nobody worthy
He
or is she getting tapped out? Because we learned the abilities typically, or while the ranger that we have with us is talking about how she's got to get so much XP to rework her build because a lot of the freebie um, powers that you get for being an inquisitor that are just given to you from the XP of the god,
mhm.
kind of counteract or are different,
Yeah.
but they can also take them all away, which is what happened with Galileo for losing his sun wave. But now he's the only one who can do it.
And he's constantly questioning what the system is doing. right? He got kicked out and now he's back, and he has the constant back and forth, like what they're doing isn't right. Like, what about taking care of the people? You know, serving the light. Um, yeah.
And he gets a visit from Murmur, or sorry, the boatman.
Mm-hmm. Those are always fun. It's just the scaling each book. Book 4 is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the scaling in book 5, because when you look, it, yeah, that first fight when
5 or
we get the
4?
vampires to like, oh my goodness, we're taking the fight to them. And then by the end of the book, full blown city combat,
Yeah,
right? And the whole piece about the heroes and what we think of them going to be there, like we pretty much at this point understand that somebody from his world came in and for the light, for the church, made the heroes. And Edward suspects that he broke objectivity's rules when he did it, and that's why it's not there. Um, but that's pretty much how they're able to call these epic beings, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And then he gets the weird sensation when he steals Ryan's endurance, and he's like,
mhm.
oh, this is similar, something's alive in there. And I'm sorry, my first line of thought was gerbil people.
Gerbil
There's a
people.
yeah, there's a gerbil inside an automaton or a android.
Hakuna
So the
Matata.
gerbil gets all the XP, and that's why you can't see
Mm,
them using, or you don't hear them because they're inside, and then you can't see them doing the hand motions because they're inside their mech.
yes, I could see it. I can see it. Or some
But
little
it,
people.
yeah, because
MIB, they had
Edward
the alien in the guy's head, right? Men in
Feinberg.
Black,
Oh, okay.
way back. Anyway, um, yeah, yeah. The real world elements, I think, just so well done and believable, right? Um, they talk about you get to see it through the real world perspective as Edward's replacement gets hired, and kind of that super sweet at the store, let's get you to where you can play Idless online at work and then have the other two people do all the work and stay late, right? For Ryan Silverblade to have a fourth party member. So he gets on Edward's old account. And as she's going through and kind of like talking him through it, he says that players got punished for like dying too much. Like supposedly, if you kept
Yeah,
wiping, they wouldn't let you keep playing, which kind of suggests that there's a limited amount or
and then on the
some
opposite
intervention.
side, how you had to be so successful before you could get a second character slot.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You really start to see the strings that are pulling in the back there, and it makes you wonder. Um, because we talk about in every single one of these books, we kind of have that polar opposite perspective, right? Like it's good, bad, light, dark, dungeon lord, like inquisitor or Galileo, sunbeam, yeah, and then the light and the dark gods and all this other stuff. We get to see all the dark gods kind of intervention and starting to see more of the players there. Makes you wonder on the light side, because even Edward stops and kind of like poses those similar questions where I guess he technically does have a light god in the haunt, but it's of commerce, where they make the coin donations and he really doesn't look that hard at it. And then if we have some of these pain in the butts over here on the dark side, what about the guys on the light side, right? Creating these heroes. Where's the power come from? Yeah.
Or well, the
We
power, it's either, yeah, I think of it like a filter. You know, the gods can't interact with the mortal realm, but if you sacrifice people, you can utilize all their XP and give a portion to the dark god. But if you sacrifice your time and pray and do other things,
or the
you
coins
can,
or whatever that.
yeah, or
Yeah.
whatever their token gesture is, you
They
can siphon
totally
power.
they totally pull strings though.
But
Like,
then you also have the one for one, how like book 2, when Edward is being brought by the boatman to save Catelyn, who's like,
mhm.
let me get my people. And he's like, but if I do that, then the light gets a free pass and they're going to stop this, orphanage from burning down. And
There's a balance there on the back end, yet they still spend their currency the best they're able and try to manipulate the situation the best they're able and constantly messing up what Ed has going for him, right? Like,
yeah, and it's like the whole just layers aspect, like we're a dungeon lord, we're doing it for the people, but we're still just pawns to the light and dark gods, but
mhm.
they're still just children to objectivity. Yeah.
Yes,
We
yes,
haven't really seen a avatar for objectivity to throw the smackdown yet.
yeah.
Because they talk
We
about Alita coming in human form once upon a time, and she hasn't done it recently. And then we've got the boatman.
Is it foreshadowing? Like, we're seeing more gods. We got to see a couple more this book. Because it's not just Haran, it's also the vampire sponsor. And
Or, well, she's not a god. She's a dungeon lord that just resides in
mm,
how the portal to the other place. I can't think of the name.
she's still pretty big, though.
Or,
It,
yeah, but I don't see that as being like a god. That's a sponsor.
little g, little g. There's the big G's and then there's the little G's. Like, compared to where Edward is in the whole realm of things. But yes, you're right. You're right. I misspoke. She is not a capital G. She's a little g, where she can intervene and like the tarot cards, um,
Yeah, but that's
and
ancient
sending
artifact
minions.
power.
Fair enough. Fair
That's
enough.
like
Fair
sensu
enough.
bean level stuff.
I mean, in a way, he kind of is. What is it? Piccolo's counterpart begins with a D. In a way, he kind of is a little G, right?
And I guess, Goku gets res like 3 times,
Uh,
3, 4 times throughout it.
yeah, he's not quite a little G, but he's getting to that godlike power by the end of Dragon Ball Super. And I think even, yeah, anyway, we could go too far down that rabbit hole. What I'm saying is there's a progression into goddom, right? Like if we go to
Well,
Divine
yeah, that's
Dungeon, you
what
start out
the
as a fishy. Edward was a fishy in book one, right?
yeah.
And end of book two, maybe like the C rank where he's starting to unlock some of his stuff. He's getting introduced to mana and like these cool things with the spells. And
Yeah,
then
but
you
he
keep
couldn't
going all the
even
way to end
finish
of
off
book
the big
five,
bad.
where you have like Madness and what's his name?
Or
Uh,
you said 5.
yeah, with Divine Dungeon. Anyway,
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was thinking Dungeon
Xenocide,
Lord
like he's moving into little G status.
or
Xenocide.
Xenocide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, bringing it back onto Dungeon Lord. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
those I need to get the quote for the tarot cards because like a lot of them make sense, and how he for one of them he becomes like the Wraith Dungeon Lord where he ends up losing everybody and
hmm
he skirts the line of objectivity to not quite be a Wraith but not quite be a human,
hmm
and buffs the other side of his character sheet. And then there was one where the card was black or blank, and it's like, oh, well, we'll pretend you just pissed off objectivity
Right,
and got
right.
erased from the world. And then,
He felt it like at the very end there of book 3
yeah,
when he confronts the guy that he thought was from his world. He feels objectivity come over, and then the impression is like, changes its mind and moves on. Like, no, you're not worth it. But like, he could tell.
he was skirting
Um,
the line,
hmm
which then allows him to connect all the dots and
Yes,
hypothesize when he, has a showdown with the Inquisitors in Gallia.
he brings it up. He was a programmer that was essentially programmer by education. Academia went to school for it, and then was working at the equivalent of Geek Squad doing hardware repairs, but it's Laser Shark. And now he's applying his programmer gamer logic to, okay, like what are the rules here? How can I set this up? How can I word these terms of conditions of the haunt and set up these like fail safes where we only pack with one of the parents to kind of keep you in line and like check on things. And then if that one dies for whatever reason, the other one's not technically part of the haunt. So they
So
can
they can
kind of
run
like,
away with the kids.
yeah, they could take the kids and
Yeah,
run.
but he's slowly losing it, or he's slowly going more and more, because by the end of it all, he's got Undercity, if he falls, his mantle of everything he's built is going to be purged.
It's
So,
that age-old question too, like how much, like he knows that he's asking them to take a risk, yet he keeps making these decisions for their best interest, right? In book 2, it was when the villagers that he pretty much decided he had to keep behind because they'd run their mouth and then everybody would get burned to the ground.
yeah.
Um, So he's like, no, you guys got to stay here. And then other people opted to stay there, right? Like the alchemist, the blacksmith, like people that saw, hey, this way of life is actually way better than my life over there. Like, we'll take the risk. What do you need? And then they're treating him like a lord. And he admits, like, oh, it's going to his head. Like, oh,
Well, it's
you know,
just the.
Daddy Edward knows how to take care of his minions. Let me just keep taking the power, keep taking the responsibility, keep making these decisions. Now we're going to take on a kingdom and go compete against all the other dungeon lords who have been around for eons in that annual competition, right?
Yeah, and it's just the threat level and the scaling, because before it was just, you know, the sheriff, Galio, and then it
The
was
outcast.
now we're up against Nikolai, who was Ranger Ion's friend, and we get a little bit more lore for the Mind Brood. And then I don't think we had. This is why 3 just like makes sense, is good, but doesn't get the girl. There's no Mind Brood, and only one visit from Haran. Or
But
the.
the haunt seriously levels up.
Yeah, there a lot of
And
good stuff,
that
but all
dungeon
the
now
other books
includes
have.
Undercity. Like
Yeah.
we're not just a tiny little hole in the ground to keep ourselves safe and protected anymore. We have terms of the haunt written on the wall, an empire of spiders, something like 15, 17 cat car. part of the haunt, and then their pact, or whatever the technical term is, are allies running patrols. Our batlins are multiplying, working beside the humans. It's like this whole little
Or
monster
yeah,
utopia,
but
right?
now everybody knows both, the light and the dark are trying to gain power and do stuff. All the dark are like, wait, he captured a hero. How did he do that with his scrambler towers? Oh,
I
we need
want it.
him on our side.
Yep,
Politics, blah blah
yep,
blah, for the oh, St. Clair and Tillman factory.
yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I grew up watching Pinocchio, and Pinocchio has the Jiminy Cricket for your
Mm,
conscience because
let me
he's
be
not
your
a real
guide.
boy. But Kessa of Green has her
Yes,
commander who pops into her head and keeps everything straight.
yes.
And Edward, more or less has his own internal monologue. But yeah, I enjoy Cass, her internal dialogue.
The main crew is just so diverse with their personalities. It's fun. Like, props to the author, like Hugo Huesca, um, because you have such a diverse cast when it comes to the personalities between our bard, our witch, Kess, the voices in her head, her Danny, her Jiminy Cricket. Um,
Now we've got a 10,
Welcome.
11-year-old looking blood-sucking vampire.
Yes, yes.
There's a hole in my shirt. Anyway,
uh, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy these types of lit RPGs. That's one of the things, like,
I
we've been playing in this genre so much, and there's lit RPG, and then there's all the different types of lit RPG, right?
yeah, this is not very that heavy. The biggest factor is you train your skills, and then based off your XP, the higher your skills are, the more that you unlock. So you don't have to spend it. Where I guess more typical lit RPG is kind of MMO-ish or RPG-ish, where you hit a level, you get access to these spells. Where this is all
Yes.
based off of your own personal development. You know, doing the sword training, increasing your martial prowess unlocks the ability for, power strike or casting more
Yeah.
spells, and increasing that unlocks new spells.
So one of the critiques I read, I don't even know where, it was probably Reddit, so don't want to get quoted here, but somebody was talking about if you just write it as a lit RPG, there you can use like the cop out or the hand waving of oh, because the game said so, or it's part of the system, right? Where it doesn't necessarily make sense. Where some of these other ones, like Dungeon Lord, we've talked about it before. It's so much more D&D ish, where um, yeah, like you
Like
can
the dailies on
pursue
the
it.
spell abilities, you can
Yeah,
only the
you have to
the
learn it.
XP is
You
a
have to get
giant pool.
access to it, right? Like
Yeah.
the capabilities, the options, potentials out there. It's not just, oh, let me, open up this HUD display and click on this box, and now I've just powered up. Um, it reads like a fantasy in so many ways. I think that, yeah, yeah, dark fantasy.
Well, and that's where I don't know. I can't figure out where I want to go with stuff because for a lot of the younger literature, books, movies, things that I've done, it's always been like, I'm the good guy and I'm the bad guy. Evil villain monologue. Oh no, I let you go or recover and now I'm dead. But so many of the books I've been reading recently, like you get that dual vision or get to see both sides where
It's not black
the
and
fact
white.
of the matter is like we're all just, you know, fish and we're dealing with people in outer space shooting lasers. Like I the good guys do it for their reasons, the bad guys do it for their reasons. Everybody's trying to protect their family and end of the day, like however people justify it.
And as is it Levi the witch? Does that sound right, Levi?
Or yeah, that's the witch.
She talks about it with Ed about not ruining her beauty sleep, right? Like if you can't control it, people are going to do what they're going to do.
Or no, that's a different one. That's with Kleck when Kleck comes back,
Well, out of his
ruining the
control,
beauty
right?
sleep. But the one you're talking about is the skin comment. She's like,
Mm,
"Oh, you'll be wrinkly
yes.
before, and death is just a part of the world we live in. It could be this, it could be that." And she's starting to spiral out of control. And then she's like, "It's just a factor of life. I know your life was different, but you know, take me
Mm-hmm.
as a counterpoint. Look at this skin."
Mm-hmm. They're fun. I laugh, I cry, I get those epic feel good moments in this book, and then it's over
Man, I
too
don't
soon.
think Fleck got like a saving grace in this one either. Like,
No
like
new titles?
book one, Kleck gets his everybody always forgets about Kleck moment.
Yeah.
Book two, I want to say, maybe he doesn't get it. Maybe it's just his like un or well his dedication to Edward and how he can do anything. And then I
Well,
guess
he
three, he's a
starts
spider
writing.
rider.
Yeah, I was about to say he starts it there. So, yeah, partnered with the spiders, and now he's leading a whole pack of them, running secret missions to like. He's the whole reason why they found out about the vampire.
Yeah.
Laying in the web, letting the vibrations pick up stuff, and
His
um,
echolocation.
yeah, yeah. Again, taking full advantage of objectivity, right?
Well, and that's where this book also excels because so many are just like overpowered or
Hmm.
almighty or righteous, where this book is dark fantasy, but it is exactly the everyman book.
Hmm.
This was a guy, an average Joe, who, threw his hat in the ring or got sucked through a portal to another world where he is going to stand by what he knows and thinks is right.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's just
It,
developing the community.
the book does a good job with that, showing that it's not just black and white, it's not just good versus evil, right? Even
Mhm.
though Edward's playing for the evil team, quote unquote, he's still taking care of his, and you see from the inside looking out, like the difference it makes. In a lot of ways, he keeps going back to like, man, like uh, getting over the thing with Ryan and just what an awful boss he was. And so when he starts to do something that would take him down that path, he thinks of, oh, I didn't like that when I was the peon at Laser Shark.
Yeah, that'd be a Ryan move.
Exactly. And the people he surrounded himself with kind of helped check him as well, right? Kess, Levy,
Yeah.
our Bard, what's his name?
Older.
Alder. You're on it. Um, yeah. Yeah. So in other news, I sometimes I get annoyed and have most of my notifications muted, but Audible is pretty good about it if you put it on your wish list. They said that the book for the Wolfman,
Uh,
Bibliomancer,
yeah, Bibliomancer.
I just picked it up. It was $5. Audible's been on it with sales. We talked about doing a video of the 20 some lit RPG books we picked up for Cyber Weekend. We have a lot of new stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
which way are you leaning for next week? Have you decided?
I don't know.
It's
You can
Peter's
pick.
birthday week month. I'm trying to spend time on lit RPG since we've been having so much fun.
Yeah, I stopped counting. It doesn't happen if you don't count it.
There you go. There you go. Somebody told me that once with dieting and cookies. Like calories don't count if you don't count them. I'm like, no, I don't think that's how it works. You still get the experience points from it. You absorbed. Anyway, gosh, so many good ones. We talked about
I was
doing
gonna
Rogue.
say, what's up?
We talked about doing Rogue Dungeon.
That's
Um,
another good one.
we talked about doing something completely new.
Or so.
Ready Player 2.
I
That's
haven't
one.
been through that yet, and I've heard a lot of bad reviews.
It could be interesting. We could also do
I
something.
that's one that
You
I
want
need
to
to
do
give a
Murder
shot.
Hobo?
What's up?
Murder Hobo?
That's another good one. I That's shorter. That's standalone. Anybody can jump on, deal with
Yeah.
it, jump in. There are only a few Easter eggs that like I didn't realize until I went back through
But it doesn't
Completionist 4.
they're more nods. They're more kind of like as we're talking about with
Oh
this
yeah,
book, understanding the magic behind the curtains, right? Like it's part of this bigger playing field in the multiverse.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think something Murder Hobo.
Something Murder Hobo next
Yeah.
week.
Yep.
Sticking to 8 p.m.
Mm, yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. 8 p.m. allows me to mess up everything and then scramble to get it together the day of. 5 p.m. allows me to do stuff after.
It's it's 2020, guys. For those of us watching this in archive, um, we're taking it easy, just geeking out over some books through December. 2021, we'll get you a master plan. But yeah, you guys have suggestions, let us know. But something Murder Hobo next weekend, Sunday, the 20th. We only got two more for the year. We also need to get that 52 book challenge. All
Wrapped up
good
and
end of
counted.
year slash new year stuff. So many good books, so little time. We also have the other, gosh, we could do a geek out every day and there still would be awesome books that I would want to read.
Well, that's where, or that's the title. We're doing
Yes.
something full Murder Hobo. Very unique, standalone. Pick it up.
Bah.
Great. It's shorter. It's essentially getting our party together for our D&D run. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um Yeah, Dungeon Lord, Epic series. Haven't found any official updates on book 5 online. A
A lot happens in book 4, and
lot
after
happened
book
in book 4.
4, you really need to reread the rest because the rereadability just goes through the roof.
Yes,
And yeah,
yes, yes. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, happy early birthday, Pete. Looking forward to geeking out with you and anybody else who wants to hang out next week over something Murder Hobo. And on a
or
final
full
note,
murder hobo.
full Murder Hobo, excuse me. Final word, Pete.
Hope
Bye.
to geek out with you soon. All right. Is that our tagline?
Yep. Bye.
Bye.